Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jim Powell Report. I'm your host, Jim Powell, and starting off our 14th year of the Jim Powell Report, we wanted to do a very special show. So we have a very important guest with us today, is Utah Valley University President Matt Holland. He's going to talk about education at the university and how this institution of over 37,000 students is growing to meet the needs of the growing economy of Utah and the needs of the world. So I'm very pleased to have President Holland on our show today.
Thank you, Jim. Delighted to be here.
Good to see you. You've been here for 9 years now, and some of the statistics are outstanding. Under your leadership, with the campus growing, with an enrollment nearly tripled in 10 years.
Well, we feel very fortunate that way. We've worked hard, and I think we've done things a little bit differently here, and it seems to have paid off. Students are coming, they're voting with their feet, and more importantly, they're staying and they're graduating, and I think having a great experience.
And that's what I hear from out in Massachusetts, is that the model of Utah Valley University is expanding with the needs of the 21st century and the economy, that people from all over the region, out in the West, but also from California, and the international community and minority communities are coming here, because this university is really following a model that works. It's financially and fiscally responsible, and it's meeting the academic needs and requirements for the graduates to get jobs. Would you elaborate?
Sure. I do think what we're doing is unique, and it seems to be an idea whose time has come. The basic structural idea is that we've decided to be both a community college and a university at the same time. We come out of this long tradition of vocational education and vocational training and a community college, state college. And when we became a university in 2008, and then I came in 2009, the question was, well, what kind of a university are we going to become? And in many ways, the natural next step, the normal next step would have been to become like an R1 research school and focused very heavily on that. And there were good arguments for doing that, but I think at the end of the day, as we looked at it, what made more sense for our community at this time, and frankly, in light of some of the forces going on in the world, is that we combined the inclusiveness, the outreach of a community college, actively drawing in students from underserved populations, taking students who may or may not be ready for a full-scale university experience, building out programs for them, keeping costs low, even at the same time that we're building a terrific teaching university that has outstanding four-year programs, can be nationally recognized and distinctive for what they do in terms of their rigor and expectations, and that those would sit side by side under the same roof, same set of buildings, same set of administrators. And it's proved a remarkably economically efficient operation, but also a terrific way to enhance the quality of programming from certificates all the way up through 4 years.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I hear from university presidents back in Massachusetts, is that some of their frustrations are that they are tied into their legacy of research operations and that funding and how it's tied into endowments, and yet they have graduates every year having to look farther and farther or go online. And it seems like Utah Valley University has a model and a mission that's really working, and that's been called the dual mission.
The dual mission model, that's right. That we have once this mission of a community college where, you know, we're not sloughing off, we're adding programs like robotics and mechatronics and cybersecurity, things that the community says we need these, there are jobs for these, there are certificates, there are AAS and AS degrees, and some of these are great jobs. So we have an AAS degree in electrical automation repair technology, so kind of advanced manufacturing.
Very specific.
And you can come in for 2 years and get this degree and start a job at, on average, $65,000, $70,000. That's a great degree for some people who are so inclined and need that training, but it's required a little more sophistication than sometimes you see at a community college, and yet it's also not the kind of degree you typically see at a university because it's not a four-year program. And we've said, but that's what the community is asking for. We have students interested, so let's build out some of those programs and move them forward, even as we retain the mission of a university where you have a great general education experience and you read history and literature and social science and then go on and get a 4-year degree. And we're doing that too for those students who are ready and prepared to get a more advanced degree and move forward with those opportunities that it will provide.
Mm-hmm. And the Utah Valley University campus is set here right at the base of the Wasatch Mountains, just a short drive up to Sundance Ski Resort and Park City to the Sundance Film Festival. This is just a beautiful part of the country to live in and go to school.
I think it's one of the draws for us for sure. We're still very strongly a Utah-based institution, but we have students from 73 different countries, all 50 states, and I think they come here. It's a safe place to go to school, which is no small issue in the world in which we live today. It's a wonderfully supportive culture. We've worked really hard in being inclusive. Our whole community college mission, that's part of living up to our core theme of being inclusive, but it's more than just being academically inclusive, culturally inclusive, outreach to underserved populations, underrepresented populations, conscious efforts and programs to go solicit the application and retention of Native American students, African American students, first-generation students, more female students. Most of the rest of the world, we don't have enough young men going to college. In Utah, it's kind of the opposite, so we've had an active outreach there. Anyway, that brings all those things work together to again make this a very attractive place to pursue higher education.
Mm-hmm. It is, and I sure enjoy my time teaching here as well, and I've noticed that collegiality and professionalism, and the Higher Education Academy in England has a unique fellows program arrangement with Utah Valley University. I've noticed that the government of Spain, the Embassy of Spain, has a consulate right here in the university.
That's right.
And there are many students from Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries, as well as the People's Republic of China and Korea, Taiwan. Yeah. They're from everywhere.
Yeah, they are. Just had a wonderful event today with our China initiative where we gave an award to a figure who's been very involved in the U.S.-China trade relations, and our Chinese faculty were there and our students in that program. So yeah, that's one of many examples we could give of the international diversity and the domestic diversity that we have here on our campus.
Mm-hmm. That's good. And as the campus continues to grow, it seems to really be growing in an organized way, that under your leadership there's been a 40-year plan that has really been developed and is playing out.
Well, we realized in 2009 when I first got here that we were just a brand new university, but we were sort of landlocked. We were on 200 acres, and we had kind of built a lot of that out with buildings and parking lots, and so the question was, well, where do we go from here? And so that really forced some very hard long-term planning and thinking about the nature of the university and how we move forward. And so we've done a number of things, including picking up 200 acres on the old Geneva Steel site, which is just a 1.5 miles up the road, and it will be connected by mass transit. And we've got some further satellite properties in the north part of the county and the south part of the county, all again highly integrated with mass transit up and down the line. And then that in combination with hybrid courses and online learning, we believe now that where we felt sort of landlocked, we can now grow this institution to 50 or 60,000 students and be able to accommodate that with quality and facilities.
Mm-hmm. I think that the companies, the high-tech companies in particular, from California, that are moving here for the favorable conditions with finding great college graduates,
right.
Low cost of living. They're moving from the Silicon Valley to what's known affectionately as the Silicon Slopes.
Right.
And that this institution, with Adobe and many other high-tech companies having their headquarters there, that they're looking for this corridor right through Utah Valley.
Yeah.
And would you explain a little bit about the arrangement with the Utah Transit Authority and the great success that you've had working out something that's environmentally friendly, but also is economically feasible for the long-term growth of the university?
So that, as you say, that corridor that runs from kind of South Salt Lake down in through Utah County is now known as Silicon Slopes, and company after company developing or relocating. And we now have, I think, $5 billion plus companies that have just developed in the last decade or so that are situated right here. And so that is drawing in move-ins and new operations, and with that comes new students. So we are going to have, we've decided that we need to change our behaviors in a certain way, and that means using more mass transportation. So we've partnered with UTA for them to set up an intermodal hub station right across from our campus, which will bring in Front Runner, the light rail, bus rapid transit, and eventually maybe the light rail system. I said Front Runner is more the heavy rail, and then the light rail tracks system would come out of that. And that would all happen right and around our campus. And we've also gotten support to build a long pedestrian bridge right over I-15 that will allow people to walk from that intermodal hub station right onto our campus. And we think this will draw in students from all over the valley through mass transit, make it very accessible so that we don't have to build as much parking, we don't add as much congestion, we become a greener valley, not just UVU green, but environmentally green.
Taking more cars off the highway.
Exactly.
And I know that it's always competition with the state legislature. They're putting in $600 million a year just into the highway.
Yeah.
It doesn't completely subsidize repairing the highways, but that finding funding for the university is, you're in competition with all the other needs.
Yep.
And so by demonstrating a great fiscal responsibility and vision, that Utah Valley is actually poised to set an example that, frankly, back in Massachusetts, I know there was a time back when Governor King was in there, we were pouring concrete so fast, but that at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, the campus, it's about a mile and a half from one end to the other, but that your discussion about the light rail and the bus, intermodal transportation takes people in from farther away, lets them leave their cars at home, come to school.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, another thing that's great about Utah Valley University is that it's growing with its athletics programs. The men's soccer team is the only NCAA sanctioned team in the state.
Yeah, that was a very strategic decision on our part. When I first became president, there was enormous pressure on me to start a football program. So we'd just become a university. Everyone said, oh, that's the mark of a true university, you got to have a football program. And I loved the game, I loved to watch it, and I was sorely tempted. But when I looked at the financial equation of it, a stadium, uniforms, coaches, all the scholarships, and then with Title IX, I'd probably have to start 2 female sports. I mean, the number is astronomical these days, and it would be years before we could probably be really competitive with some of these programs that are around the state. So we made a decision to start football. We just spell it different, F-U-T-B-O-L, football.
Football.
So we started, it's the only Division I men's soccer team in the state. It's been very popular. We have, I think at one point, and maybe still are, 16th in the nation for fan attendance at a college soccer game for the season. So our students have kind of locked onto it as a great fall sport, and we do that for pennies on the dollar. So that's been fun. And we've got a terrific, still relatively new men's basketball coach who's got a terrific team going. Right now the talk in the state is that UVU may be the one Division I men's basketball program that has a shot at going to the NCAA. And you just probably wouldn't have had that conversation even a few years ago. So lots of things going on. Those are just 2 examples, but men's and women's sports, lot of fun stuff happening.
It helps attract a different demographic into the school.
Sure.
And it's great for school pride. There's some great innovations that are being developed here. Academically, I like the focus. It's been an economically, fiscally responsible university, and the students are growing, and they like it. But also that there are great innovations and quality work coming out of the university. We've talked about the dual model of engaged learning that connects the teachers, academic studies to jobs. Also that there are some other notable achievements that I noticed when I read through some notes. One is, and there are many, I just picked 3 for our viewing audience, the cancer detection technology that's being developed here. And I know up in Salt Lake City you've got the great Huntsman Cancer Research Center. So that's one. and any of these you can speak about.
Yeah, I mean, these are all manifestations of our commitment to engage learning, to deal with real-world issues around us, to involve students as much as we can, which is true of our cancer detection research program, as well as maybe some of the others you're going to point to. Yeah. But it's to show that even in this dual mission model, we can still do research, we can still have that kind of activity, and we need to, at some level, to provide these wonderful opportunities for our students and make a difference in the world around us.
Mm-hmm. And one thing you talk about in the world we're living in has a growing population, and we're consumers, we're impacting the environment, and that creates more ozone and other problems with the environment, with the upper atmosphere, and that the university is taking an active role in developing some algae mitigation technology. I know that Utah Lake, just west of the campus here, has some huge blooms of green algae, and that impacts the recreational uses of the lake. But back in the Northeast, in Massachusetts, algae blooms along the shoreline impact not just vacation homes, but they impact fishing and seafood propagation, and that the issue of dealing with phosphorus and nitrogen loading, whether it's in freshwater here at Utah Lake, or how that technology here that's being developed could be applied. I know that the Buzzards Bay Coalition, the Martha's Vineyard Commission, the Woods Hole Oceanographic are all, and the Marine Biology Lab back in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, are all interested in the technology that's being developed here as a cost-effective way to help mitigate. And so kudos to my colleagues here,
yep.
Dr. Shurtleff
yep.
here at Utah Valley University.
We just had a couple of students recognized with one of the top awards given by our trustees for their involvement with that project at an undergraduate level. It's really impressive what not only the faculty are doing, but what the students are doing under their mentorship.
Mm-hmm. And what I liked about this particular algae bloom issue was that it's difficult for municipalities to mandate that private homeowners tap into a municipal sewer line, especially if they're on septic or whatever. Yeah. But yet the phosphorus and nitrogen keep loading into the water table, and it's becoming a very expensive problem. But to be able to effectively mitigate some of that by skimming is one solution that's being developed here at Utah Valley, and I think that with the input from the different coalitions and organizations back east, that they can develop a collaborative partnership in helping to deal with a real worldwide situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another third thing is the expansion of campus, and it's not just along the front runner area right across from Orem. Within the plan, there's growth all up and down the Wasatch Front. Yeah. Could you elaborate? How is the plan being developed to meet the needs of Heber Valley, Park City, Payson, Spanish Fork as we go down farther south?
Yeah. So again, our philosophy has been that the Orem campus would be kind of the nerve center, if you will, the primary academic backbone of the institution in terms of the buildings and the programs. To be able to do that as we grow moving forward, we're going to, over time, push to our Vineyard campus, just a mile up the road, connected by the front runner and other forms of mass transit. We'll start to push out athletics, auxiliary programs, maybe standalone academic programs where you don't need to shuttle back and forth to the main campus. That will free up more space on the main campus to build out buildings and let that grow. But we'll not stay contained there. We'll have we're working on solidifying property in the south part of the county at Payson for 40 acres. We've got 10 acres up in the north part of the county at Thanksgiving Point. We have a 40-acre campus at Heber we're always looking to develop and add programs to, making sure that we're taking care of that community. So we really do have a kind of I think a powerful spoke and wheel strategy here that allow us to cover our service region very effectively.
That really makes sense. and it is very, I want to call it nimble.
Yeah.
And you say the Vineyard campus. Now, I'm from Martha's Vineyard, and a lot of our viewers on Martha's Vineyard.
I wish we had a Martha's Vineyard campus. Maybe that's the next objective.
Get a
So,
satellite or something.
yeah.
But with this type of growth, it's seems that the growing pains that are normally met
Yeah.
are being dealt with effectively because the student enrollment keeps growing. And the model, this dual model here at Utah Valley, is really catching the interest of a lot of university and college administrators, so much so that it caught the interest of the British Parliament.
That's right. Yeah.
And you were invited to go back and speak before Parliament.
So I had gone on an administrative leave for 3 months, something I'd qualified for a few years ago but hadn't been able to take because I was so busy. But we got to a point in the university where I felt like, okay, I could get away for a couple of months. And I went back to rekindle my own academic roots. I had a project about studying Jefferson and Madison and some of their transatlantic letters and their exchange when Jefferson was minister to France and Madison was back at the Constitutional Convention. And so I was very excited to do that, and I did do that. I was at Pembroke College, Oxford. But I would sit around with these Oxford scholars and would be talking about American history and political philosophy, and inevitably the conversation would end talking about UVU and this dual mission model. And they were so fascinated with it that led to some invitations for me to speak publicly about it at Oxford University. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't plan that anytime soon Oxford will adopt the dual mission model, but I think what they could see is that there were a lot of places in the UK that could benefit from that model, like we were benefiting from it here in Utah. And a member of the House of the Lords got wind of one of these talks that I gave, and right now there's a very strong focus in the UK about technical education and how we shore it up and how we enhance it and how we not let it be overwhelmed by traditional university academic training. And so when she heard what we were talking about, she said, that sounds like something that could be very timely. And so she invited me down, we talked about it. I'd met some other people from around the country, the president of the University of Sheffield, the chief minister for education within the Church of England, a public intellectual in London who was writing about immigration issues and education, some very thoughtful stuff. And we came together for a panel discussion in Parliament for an all-party Parliament group where we were spending 2 hours together with a lot of it focused on UVU's dual mission and how that works and how you might make it work in the UK.
Mm-hmm. I served in Massachusetts on the State Workforce Investment Board. Education is a committee and is an industry committee. And the state universities have a real need to figure out how to deal with growing costs and expenses, and how to get graduates that actually can go into jobs. Yeah. Otherwise, people won't enroll in the courses if they're not going to get hired. So it seems like Utah Valley University, through its dual model mission statement, has effectively done that, and that its continued growth has been planned for another 40 years and run on out.
That's right. That's right. We knew if this model worked, it would drive growth up, that we would have more students come, and that we would have more students stay, and so we'd have to figure out how to accommodate that growth, and that we would do so by this long-range planning that shows a mix of the bricks and mortar infrastructure with innovations in technology and hybrid courses, and being as efficient as we can, and I think we see a path forward.
You really do, and you've done a great example, done a great job with that. Some of my colleagues back east will be asking about, well, if you're not a research institution, how is it going to apply to us? And what about the bias of what's called Harvard envy, that so many colleges and universities are measured up against the standard of Harvard?
Sure. Well, Harvard's a wonderful institution, obviously. My brother is at Harvard. He's an outstanding academic and forging a terrific career there. And I love those kinds of institutions. You know, my dad went to Yale. My brother was at Harvard. I came out of places like Duke and Princeton, and those research-focused institutions play a very important role in our country. But we can't afford as a nation for all institutions of higher learning to look like this. These are very expensive institutions to run, and so we've got to figure out a different way for other institutions to operate, and we have to celebrate that and honor that, and then they can work in tandem with each other. And so that's when I talk about Harvard ending, meaning we shouldn't aspire to be that. We should let Harvard be Harvard, but let UVU be UVU, because it plays this very powerful, noble role in our community, and it operates on a different set of assumptions and procedures, and needs to.
That's right, it does. And going forward, UVU will continue that. And I think that to help sustain the growth of Utah's economy, which is, I think I have a 3% unemployment rate. The economy here is really strong.
Yes.
The quality of life is really high here.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful place to live. And but that within the United States, the example that Utah Valley University is setting here should be looked at by policymakers in Washington that are thinking about, well, how can we prepare and teach our students so they can move into jobs to sustain this growth and economic development that we have here in our country.
Yeah. No, we have to, education has got to be a working partner with the economy and the people who lead our economy. Now, that doesn't mean it's an appendage of it or an extension of it, because there are things that we need to do in higher education that are independent of whatever economic pressures exist in the world. But the world has changed so much. There is so much going on technologically, going on in terms of what's required to support the funding sources for higher education, that higher ed needs to be part of the solution and part of the support structure for making sure those businesses are prosperous and filled with employees who are well trained, so that they can then in turn come back and help fund higher education. So it's important that they have a good collaborative, responsive relationship, while recognizing each has its own dynamic and mission that it needs to fulfill independent of each other.
That's nice. Well, I love the legacy of Utah Valley's short history,
yeah,
as it keeps expanding. And I also love the fact that when you come into the library, that you feel that it's a sacred place, a beautiful place of knowledge, that this wonderful Roots of Knowledge stained glass art exhibit at the Fulton Library has been one of the crowning achievements of showcasing the university to the community. Would you talk about that? Roots of Knowledge?
Roots of Knowledge. So I'd just been in office a few months, and a local stained glass artist came to me and said, I'd like to do a series of panels chronicling the history of knowledge in the written word and put it in your library. And he showed me, he unrolled the scroll and showed me the sketch, and it was very attractive, but each panel was sort of a single thinker, a single story, like Galileo or the invention of the printing press. And, and I said, well, Tom, I love the idea of taking this ancient art form and translating it into something, you know, appropriate for a modern civil institution, a secular institution of higher learning. But we got to make it bigger. I mean, the history of knowledge in the written word is more than 14 people or stories. And his eyes kind of lit up and said, well, I've never been asked to make a project bigger. So he went back and came back with this monumental kind of vision that went from A to Z, 26 panels, 200 feet long, 30 feet on the ends, 10 feet across the middle.
Tremendous. And
it just starts with the beginning of time, and it goes through to the current time with the most important advances in art, architecture, literature, philosophy, religion, science, technology, government. It's all right there, and it does it across time and across geographies, and it's having, frankly, just the effect we hoped it would. We get dozens and dozens of visitors every day that are from elementary school level on up to college professors who are looking at things, inspired by it, curious, and that's just what we wanted to have happen here.
Wonderful. Well, the Roots of Knowledge is just one of the other many examples of why Utah Valley University is just an excellent place to go to school. You're doing a great job, and thank you very much for coming on our show today.
Thank you, Jim. It's been a delight.
Wish you well in your future pursuits as well. So.
Well, and I'm now getting ready for the Martha Vineyard campus. That's my next ambition. So.
We'll get you back there sometime.
Okay.
Well, thank you for watching this program. I'm Jim Powell, your host. We've been speaking with Utah Valley University's president, Matt Holland, and we're glad that you got to watch our show today. We'll catch you again real soon.